What is up, guys? Welcome back to another video. And today, the movie that is set to be the final DCEU movie. Well, we have Aquaman 2 around the corner, but we don't know what's going on with DC. But, anyways, the what's right now considered the final movie in the DCEU, The Flash, has officially came out, which kind of ends this weird 10-year story that we've been on with the DCEU. And in a weird, ironic way, the fact that this movie kind of goes back to Man of Steel, the movie that kicked off this entire cinematic universe, is very interesting. Now, it's full circle, as a matter of fact. Now, when we talk about this movie, I have to share my opinion on the DC Extended Universe, and I think it is one of the worst cinematic universes we've gotten. Sure, the competition is far worse than the DCEU, and the DCEU has had its moments, but overall, the franchise itself is not that great, with very few movies that I actually liked out of the franchise. Will The Flash join the ranks of the movies that I liked, or will The Flash be one of the movies that I really did not like from this franchise? There's only one way to find out, and that's to kind of talk about it. And with this movie, this is kind of a quick thoughts review. Like, this is not going to have any spoilers, and this is going to be a hot take. So hot take coming. Hot take alert. Hot take alert. I did not like this movie at all, actually. There were a few redeeming elements of the movie. Obviously, Barry's relationship with his mom, which is at the core of the movie. And obviously, the emotional scenes you have of Barry. And, but there's more serious scenes of Barry. Alan were all very well handled. Like, when he talks with his dad about the freaking camera footage, and then after that you have the emotional scenes of him relating to his mom when he was a kid. Basically, I liked everything that had to do with Barry and his family. Supergirl was also another nice element of the movie. I liked her, but I can't say I fully loved her, and I can't really get into spoilers, but this is not a spoiler, and I'm going to temper expectations. She's not in the movie that much. In fact, we don't even see Michael Keaton Batman until an hour into the movie. So if you're expecting an entire movie of Flash, Batman, and Supergirl, you might want to hold your horses, because Supergirl is not in the movie for that long. But for the short scenes that she's in, Sasha Calle does an amazing job in the role. And you know what? I liked her as an Elseworld Supergirl. I thought she did the part really, really well. And actually, I would have loved more of her. But yeah, let's get into not get into why she wasn't in the movie, because the reason she wasn't in the movie that much, it's very obvious. They kind of show in the trailer there is a Russian prison scene. So if you know the Flashpoint storyline, you kind of get the feeling of where they went with Supergirl's character. And that's kind of what the movie is. It is a movie adaptation of Flashpoint, but they took out a lot of the aspects that made Flashpoint, Flashpoint. They got rid of Thomas Wayne Batman in favor of just bringing back Michael Keaton in the role. They got rid of Reverse Flash. That's not a spoiler. He's just not in the movie. And there is another reason why Barry's mom dies, which is a little bit more and I know this sounds crazy because it's a more normal explanation, but in terms of the Flash storyline, it's kind of, it's not dumb, but it's just kind of like the explanation, like, okay. And the main reason as to why all of this happens, it's very funny, in terms of like how one thing can really change the timeline or whatever. And the way Michael Keaton Batman explained the multiverse through spaghetti is actually the best explanation we've had to the multiverse in any movie, including Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which did a pretty good job explaining the idea of the multiverse. But I just think the simple, way that Michael Keaton Batman explained how the multiverse works made it far more understanding. You also have it that the DCEU does not have complicated rules for their multiverse. This is a problem with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They use different terms to explain their universe, like different timelines or whatever. And it all gets confusing, especially when you have certain movies that just don't particularly add up to the rules established in another movie about how the multiverse works. But The Flash does not have the problem because it is the first multiverse movie that we are getting in this franchise. On top of that, that's where all the positives kind of are at for the movie for me. The main reason why I don't like this movie are the two leads. And look, Ezra Miller, they did an amazing job taking out what Ezra Miller themselves have done over the past year. In the movie, this is the best performance they have done as Barry Allen. But I just don't like this version of Barry Allen. I don't find him that endearing or charming that much. So again, I knew going in to have a whole movie starring him. I thought this movie would change my opinion on him. And sure, he's a little bit more mature in this movie, but there's just still some of those weird quirks that I don't like about his version. And I feel like Grant Gustin's version of Barry Allen is a little better. And I don't want to do the comparison because they're actually doing two completely different takes on Barry Allen, but it's just that I'm not the biggest fan of Ezra Miller's take. But I will say this is the best the character has been. Who knew? When you get your own solo movie, that you would get all this development and stuff. But anyways, young Barry was too annoying for me. And I mean, later on I got used to him. He changed, but I just could not stand him in that entire first hour. Like he was just I know he's naive and I know that he's just like very innocent, but there's a balance between being naive and innocent and just being straight up stupid almost, which is insane because you have this version of Barry Allen, the older version, who is very like super smart, like the super smart kid. And then you have this younger version of Barry who's, I mean, sure, he's not that older and he's not that experienced, but I mean, he's a little stupid. That's just the best way I could put it. Has. And, overall, the movie itself was too campy for me. I mean, I know that's a crazy criticism, but there's a certain level of camp that I kind of enjoy. There's some endearment in the old Batman 60s show. There is some camp in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. It's not that I hate not a couple, but like some campiness in a comic book movie. However, I feel like the campiness actually alienated me from the movie. It just felt way too cartoony and goofy, especially the beginning scene. And obviously the whole controversy of Flash put a baby in a microwave. It's reversed footage, but still, it is still funny. I actually found a clip of him putting the baby in the microwave more funnier than the clip that people have actually used. But anyways, you have this entire chase scene with Batfleck, which is the only time you're going to see his version of Batman actually be Batman. And I think that's his last time being Batman in this movie. And it's very Justice League. So, there's some action in here that's a little goofy. The Batman and Supergirl action was actually pretty good, but the Flash action was just very goofy. It looked a little too silly. Also, I can't believe they actually put this movie out in theaters. And what I mean is that they delayed this movie a year to work on the visual effects. The visual effects don't even look like they're finished. The visual effects actually look horrendous. And I know a lot of people, there's some shots where it looks good, but it looks very bad for the most part. Like most of the visual effects, especially when you're in the chrome dome thing. I don't think that's what it's called, but the time bubble that the two Barrys find themselves in the movie, or just Barry himself. Why did I say Barry? Like it sounded like Barry's, but Barry himself finds himself in the movie. It's like that caused the whole time travel scene. So it felt very unfinished. It felt very wonky. And, at least some people have been calling out the Flash movie for its terrible visual effects, because I was about to say, if you're going to criticize Phase 4, which is just, I think the Phase 4 visual effects for some of the projects were awful, especially in She-Hulk and Thor Love and Thunder, But if you're not gonna criticize the Flash movie for visual effects that I feel like are way worse than the in context of Thor and even She-Hulk's case, then you're gonna be a little bit of a hypocrite. I understand this is a hot take, but yeah, a lot of the movie just did not work for me. I did not care about the two Barrys like kind of bonding thing a little bit because I don't really like this version of Barry Allen that much. And obviously, the big thing is Michael Keaton's Batman. This is what the marketing has been hinged on since they announced Michael Keaton was going to be in this movie a while back. And here's another hot take, hot take, hot take. I don't like Michael Keaton Batman in general. The first Batman movie, it's not a bad movie. It's actually not bad, but it's more of a Joker movie than it truly is a Batman movie. Joker has more. I don't want to say Joker has more screen time because I didn't compare the screen time of Joker and Batman in the movie, but I feel like shockingly there's more of a focus on Joker's character. Joker goes through an actual character arc in that movie, as opposed to Michael Keaton Batman, who I don't really feel like goes through a character arc fully in that film. Like Michael Keaton's Batman kills, and I mean, there's already videos out there saying why Batman shouldn't kill, but yeah, I'm just not the biggest fan of his adaptation. Batman Returns was a little better than the 1989 Batman movie, but again, Michael Keaton's Batman was the literal last thing you would think about in that movie. You would think about Catwoman. You would think about the villain Shrek. You would think about Danny DeVito's Penguin. But in those two movies, you would never. I mean, Michael Keaton's Batman was cool for the time because that was the first not first live action, but the first, big Hollywood production live action Batman. But when you compare him to the other Batman of nowadays, he's just not that remarkable, in my opinion. I do know 40-year-old fans do have this connection to Michael Keaton because that was the first Batman they ever saw on screen. So I'm not going to discredit them for that. But yeah, I just don't really like this version of Batman that much. And the movie didn't really do anything for me. Like, there's a bunch of callbacks for nostalgia purposes with the Batman, like with Michael Keaton's Batman. And it just felt flat to me. Like, you could tell these were obvious. And then the crowd cheers moments. And you know what's sad is that that's actually going in. Oh, my bad. That's actually going to happen in the movie. That people are going to go to those moments. They're going to cheer. There's another scene, and it just pissed me off. I feel like I could make a whole video about just hype culture, how hype culture has kind of ruined comic book movies, because now that movies, I call this the Avengers Endgame effect, except Avengers Endgame earned that moment. That was a moment built 10 years in the making. But now every movie, well, I don't want to say every movie, and like every movie is looking for this moment. This isn't to discredit some movies that have actually done these moments very well, but it's just clear that a lot of these multiverse movies are just waiting for the audience to go, oh my god, it's this character. And then the crowd's going to automatically cheer just because everybody is trying to find the next Avengers Endgame. And there is one scene in the Flash movie, without any spoilers, where there are so many goddamn cameos. There's even CGI cameos of dead people. And in my opinion, it made me go, that's a little too far. I understand that family gave the blessing for, that thing to happen in the movie. But for me, this is where I was like, these studios are just getting desperate for those type of moments. And like a lot of certain scenes with Michael Keaton's Batman where he says something or he does something and it's like a callback to the 80s movie. And there's just this kind of short pause because you're waiting for the crowd's reaction. It just feels a little weird. And overall, that's the feeling I have for this movie. It's just weird. There's this weird feeling about it where the core story is actually fine. If they had focused more on Barry Allen and his connection to his mom more in this movie, I probably would have liked it more. But instead it became we gotta stop General Zod from invading Earth and, repeating Man of Steel, and then they kind of go on their adventure. It just felt like, that's the core, but it felt very thin. Like you could tell that was like, guys, you're supposed to care about Barry because his mom died. But guess fucking what? Every goddamn superhero has something tragic happen to them. What matters is if we can truly connect to the character. And I feel like some people will. And this isn't to say I didn't feel for some scenes in this movie, but I just didn't care because, I'm not the biggest fan of Barry. Although Barry maybe grew on me just a little bit in this movie, but not much. It doesn't have me going out of the theater saying, damn, I want more of the Flash movie. The Flash movie is such a weird anomaly because I hate saying this word. It's so overhyped. It is overhyped garbage. It's everything wrong with multiverse comic book movies. But at the same time, it isn't like the worst thing ever in the world. But I'm not watching it again, especially since I'm not even a big Michael Keaton Batman fan. So I feel like a lot of those moments rang hollow to me because I don't like Michael Keaton's take on Batman. And then, on top of that, you have a character that I just don't care for this version of the character being in the lead. And you have Supergirl, who is the best of the three, but she's barely in the movie. And you have this wacky, goofy ass shit happening throughout the entirety of the movie. Fucking Zod is supposed to be the main antagonist, but he's barely in the movie. So, overall, I did not care for the Flash movie. I understand why some people will like this movie and why some people like it enough to say, hey, I enjoy this movie getting out of the premiere or whatever screening you're watching. But for me, I just didn't care. I wasn't that connected to the movie, and it just kind of bewilders me that Warner Brothers thinks this movie is one of the greatest comic book movies they've ever made. This isn't even the best DC movie since The Dark Knight, because that's the Batman, obviously. But, come on, I know that's a hard bar to, set for yourself. But at the same time, does every DC movie nowadays have to be the best movie since The Dark Knight? No, they don't. But overall, yeah, The Flash was just not that good of a movie. It's not good. Okay, it's not a good movie. But I understand why people enjoy it. But some of the hype culture moments, those type of scenes, the scenes to have audience go, oh, it just didn't work for me because I don't really care for half of it because it's all Michael Keaton Batman. And the actual one they do is yeah, you just wanted to just do this bullshit because you don't get a reaction from the audience. And that to me kind of just breaks the illusion of the movie, as opposed to those moments actually feeling like they were built up and earned and make sense in the context of the movie. But yeah. Anyways, what would I rate The Flash? Oh, before I say that, there is a post-credit scene to this movie. It's not that important. If you think you have to wait all the way to the credits for it, I'm gonna save you the disappointment. It's just a comedy, post-credit scene. It's really not anything that sets up anything for the future because, well, the DCEU's kind of ending, so it doesn't matter what it sets up anymore. But yeah, overall, I will give it a 5 out of 10. That's a little harsh, I know, but for me, it's just a mixed bag. It's evenly split where there were some really great parts and there were just some really awful parts of this movie. So I know that's going to be a hot take, but overall, what did you guys think of the Flash movie if you've seen it? And if you haven't seen it, are you still excited for this movie or are you not going to watch it because of Ezra Miller? Let me know in the comments below and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.